Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, praise and thanks to Allah for the countless blessings He has blessed us all with. Blessings and salutation to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his wife, his family, companions, and to all of those who has followed his teaching to the day of judgment. My name is Muhammad Hifzan bin Harun, and together with my friends Muhammad Afif Syafiq bin Nordin, Aisamuddin bin Razaman, and Muhammad Izzahin bin Muhammad Zainuddin, we from Group 1 will present to you about our topic, Contemporary Ijtihad and Fiqh Malaysia. The objective of our study is first to understand the concept of Ijtihad and contemporary fiqh and Ijtihad in Malaysia. Second, to study some issues and examples of contemporary Ijtihad in Malaysia. Next, we go through the concept of Ijtihad. Ijtihad is an Arabic word derived from the root word of jahada, which means to struggle. Literally, Ijtihad means to strive, endeavor, make every effort, take pains, exert oneself, and work hard in doing something. While technically, Ijtihad means an effort or struggle by a mujtahid to istinbat or to extract the Sharia rulings. So, it is understood from the definitions that Ijtihad generally refers to an effort or struggle in doing something, and it encompasses all people without being specified to any specific individuals. While in terms of its technical definition, it refers to the effort of extracting the Sharia rulings, which is specified only to a mujtahid scholar, who should pass strict conditions to be eligible to do Ijtihad by his own. Next, there are three bases of Ijtihad, which is the Quran, Sunnah, and Aqlu. Ijtihad is validated by Quran in Surah An-Nisa verse 59. Allah said, A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu ati'ullaha wa ati'ur rasul wa ulil amri minkum, which means, all you who believe, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those charged with authority among you. From the Sunnah, it is based on hadith by Amr bin al-As. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Iza hakama al-hakim fajtahada thumma asaba falahu ajran, wa iza hakama fajtahada thumma akhta falahu ajrun wahid." Atau kama qala an-nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It means, if a judge makes a ruling striving to apply his reasoning and he is correct, he will have two rewards. If a judge makes a ruling striving to apply his reasoning and he is mistaken, he will still have one reward. Lastly, from the perspective of Aqlu, while the nusus of Next, we go through the types of Ijtihad. In general, Ijtihad is divided into two parts, namely Ijtihad Farudi and Ijtihad Jami'i. Ijtihad Farudi is every Ijtihad performed by an individual or several people, but there is no evidence that all other mujtahids are agree with it in the matter. This kind of Ijtihad was once allowed by the Prophet to Mu'az when the Prophet sent him to be a Qadi in Yaman. Next, Ijtihad Jam'i. Ijtihad Jam'i is an Ijtihad in a matter which is agreed upon by all mujtahidin. This kind of Ijtihad is meant by the hadith of Ali bin Abi Talib when he asked the Prophet about a matter that befell the people whose law is not found in the Quran and Sunnah.
There are various new issues arising from the effect of social change in the Muslim community of Malaysia. According to Al-Qardawi, there are two forms of ijtihad that can be applied today. First, Ijtihad al-Intiqai, which is selective comparative ijtihad by re-ijtihad the result of previous Islamic scholars' law, along with the arguments that contain the legacy of classical fiqh, make a comparison with each other, then choose a stronger opinion, which is tarjih. Criteria used in selecting strong opinions include: first, that opinion should be more in line with the belief of people today. Second, that opinion should give more blessing to mankind. Third, that opinion should be closer to the facilities provided by the Sharia. And lastly, such as opinion is more important in establishing the Sharia, providing benefits for the creatures and keeping them away from harm. And the second form is Ijtihad Insha'i. Ijtihad Insha'i is innovative, constructive ijtihad by prescribing laws on various new problems that were never known to previous Islamic law scholars, because the problem did not exist in the past or in the old, but master of law contemporary Islam has new opinion that have been put forward by previous scholars. Now we will go to the difference of ijtihad and fatwa. This is the difference of meaning and definition between ijtihad and fatwa. Ijtihad. Ijtihad is an effort that made diligently to produce the determination of an Islamic law based on the Quran and Hadith. Meanwhile, fatwa is any decision issued by the Fatwa Council that has been gazetted in relation to an Islamic law to solve current problems. Next, fatwa and ijtihad have their own benefits. From the ijtihad side, first, solve problems that arise perfectly. Second, avoid disputes in problem solving. Then, encouraging Muslim scholars to think of finding a new law. Lastly, increase faith and pity to God and God His mercy. From the side of fatwa, first is solve problems that do not have a clear law in Quran and Hadith. Second, avoiding society adhering to the laws issued by individual. Next, remove public doubts about a law. Then, given confidence to Muslims to adhere to religious law. Development of Ijtihad in Malaysia. In the years before 1970, it was found that not much attention was given to effort that develop of Islamic values that are more fundamental in our country. This is due to the secularists left behind by British colonialists who are still firmly rooted in the bureaucracy of government administration in Malaysia after independence. After 1970, this situation later began to change with the advent of the Islamic revival movement from abroad, which largely influenced all walks of life in Malaysia. Highlight from the Fatwa Administration Corner has seen the rapid development seen from the existence and influence of various dakwah bodies, which are most composed of young people from various educational backgrounds. Most of these dakwah organizations have given emphasis to effort to raise public awareness. Next, with the emergence of Islamic intellectual tradition, it arises through the existence of a community Islamic scholars who seriously venture in the field of Islamic science. Besides that, there's a lot of new problems that need new ijtihad. Therefore, ijtihad is increasingly being used in Malaysia to overcome new problems that arise.
Alright, now we move to Fiqh Malaysia. Okay, now we move to concept of Fiqh. What is Fiqh? The meaning of the word Fiqh has gone through three phases. At the initial stage, it is interpreted as understanding any Islamic teachings, whether practical or otherwise. Abu Hanifah interpreted the term fiqh as recognizing one's rights and responsibilities, which include the concept of life in this world and in the hereafter. In the second stage, the understanding of the word fiqh changes. There are two different forms. The first of which is defined as understanding Islamic practice law is based on specifically detailed propositions. It no longer includes laws related to human actions physically, morally, or religiously. In the third stage, the meaning of fiqh changes again. It is understood as practical syara' law related to the act of mukallaf, whether the law is known directly from the nas syara' or through ijtihad. Okay, now we move to the concept of fiqh Malaysia. When Baghdad fell in the middle of the 7th century, intellectual activity diminished and civilization began to decline. There was a time of stagnation and mazhabiyah flow in legal thought. This happened after the jurists from the Sunnah together agreed that everything was enough with the four existing Sunnah sects, namely the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i and Hanbali. In fact, the closure of the door of Ijtihad is contrary to the objective and concept of Islamic fiqh itself, and places the Muslims as a whole in the narrowness of the law. In order to prevent the thinking of the previous society from being stagnant and narrow, Ijtihad needs to be done. Current fiqh developments in the Middle East, supported by contemporary scholars such as Dr. Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, Mahmud Shaltut, Mustafa Al-Zarqa and others also feel the impact in our country, Malaysia. Various steps have been taken and various methods have been implemented, such as holding workshops, knowledge discourse, seminars and discussions. And all the methods will create an idea towards the formation and realization of Malaysian fiqh.
Malaysian fiqh can be interpreted based on various dimensions. As a controversial term, Malaysian fiqh needs to be identified with clear so as not to arise various perception and misunderstanding, especially among imaginary intelligence and general public. Several definitions can be formulated in relation to the term of fiqh Malaysia. That is, the first one, current fiqh in Malaysia. If Malaysian fiqh means current fiqh in Malaysia, then fuqaha in Malaysia acts as a successor to legal methodology which has been compiled since the time of the development of the science of fiqh. Either choose to use any of these legal methods, separate or combine the methods in the form of talfiq or through adaptation methods, and so on. And the number two is the second one is pure Malaysian fiqh. If fiqh Malaysia means a new sect specifically and distinctly, then the work of mujtahid is to compile and provide a new methodology of law and ijtihad, where the current law decided is based on that methodology. The next one is fiqh Shafi'i ala Malaysia. If Malaysian fiqh only occur in the form of using methodology, the observance of the law that has been provided by Imam Ash-Shafi'i, such as method of usul al-fiqh and takhrij, a law from fiqh Shafi'i. This is based on all status in Peninsular Malaysia adhere to the opinion of the Shafi'i sect as a whole. So let's name it as Shafi'i fiqh in Malaysia or Shafi'i fiqh ala Malaysia. And the last one is current compilation fiqh in Malaysia. If the Malaysian fiqh accepts all methodological methods that have been inherited from all the imams of the sect, whether the imams Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i or Hanbali, because fiqh has a mixture of methods much in its treasury. Therefore, it is more aptly called fiqh current compilation in Malaysia. Whatever interpretation is made, The laying of the basis of law and methodology guided on Malaysian fiqh needs to be done with carefully so that it walks on the right track. But if you look of the four interpretation, in my opinion, the first interpretation is to animate the concept of Malaysian fiqh as it was born by using existing methods of inheritance classical scholars, then adapted and compromised with value contemporary addition to the data comprehension.
Okay, this is the issue about use of stem cells in therapeutic treatment and research. The laws and problems of stem cell use are not explicitly mentioned in past fiqh books. This is probably because it is a new thing that has not been discovered based on technology at that time. Thus, there is a change in the law in line with the development of technology. As the words of Ibn al-Qayyim, there is no denying the change in law due to the change of time, place and circumstances. Therefore, if there is a treatment that is able to treat a related disease, then we can get the treatment in line with the maqasid al-Shari'ah, which take care of human life. Right, now we look at al-Tadarruj. What is al-Tadarruj? Al-Tadarruj is a concept from the manhaj da'wah of Rasulullah SAW. Al-Tadarruj means the approach of da'wah by using a gradual method or with simpler language. It can be understood as methods appropriate to the needs of the target group. Okay, the idea of Malaysian fiqh requires a gradual approach or graduality in its implementation. This is to ensure that solid foundation have been prepared before its full implementation. This is because Islamic fiqh has a direct relationship with the economic system, medicine, law, society, and so on. It is impossible to implement with just one declaration to the community while the policy is still fragile. So this approach can be seen in the sirah of Rasulullah SAW. He succeeded in implementing a comprehensive Islamic system after being in Medina, but he did not continue to oblige the community to perform all duties as a whole. The second factor is Islam as a whole. Apart from the process al-Tadarruj in its implementation, we must take Islam as a whole. The teachings of Islam should be laid down as a solution for all walks of life and a guide for all community institutions. This is because the teachings of Islam are comprehensive, not partial. They support each other and complement each other. The idea of Malaysian fiqh does not only focus on certain fields, but instead, in accordance with Islamic fiqh, which cover all fiqh, whether worship, muamalat, crime, marriage, and so on. Alright, the third factor is specific organisation. To succeed in the idea of Malaysian fiqh, it is necessary to establish or create an organisation as a mover to the idea of Malaysian fiqh. The establishment of the organisation is not temporary, but an organisation that can give full commitment in the success of the current idea of fiqh. A collective ijtihad approach can be implemented in this body. The participation of legal scholars and experts in various fields is essential in ensuring the continuity of the current fiqh struggle. Nowadays, there are various institutions or organizations involved in fiqh research, for example, Majma' Buhud Islamiyah and Majma' Fiqh Islami. These two organizations must be truly neutral so that it can express its opinion clearly and publish it boldly without pressure and threats from the government or social pressure. Last but not least, the function of Ijtihad. Islamic law is something that lives and always moves according to circumstances and time. Ijtihad is a guide or mover to society. It is Ijtihad that gives space to society to evaluate new things that develop in society, whether it contradicts or not with the requirements of the law, because the texts are limited while the events that take place are unlimited.
Characteristic of Malaysian society. First one, social structure. Social system in the form of maternal lineage, paternal lineage of dualism influencing family relationship patterns. For example, pepatih custom system or maternal lineage practiced by those of Minangkabau, creating different patterns of family relationship. Number 2, culture. Custom is one of the most important aspects or characteristic in all cultures nation. It does not complicate life, but custom play a role organize social life as well as the life of each member that society. Islamic civilization among the Malays began a few centuries ago. It has its own character if compared to Muslims as well, although basically the teachings of Islam are the same, that is based on the Quran and the Sunnah, but the way Islam is cultured by its people in Malaysia has its own characteristics. For example, in the matter of dressing for the race woman, wearing a baju kurung and a veil is a culture in closing aurat. However, the process of modernization and urbanization has changed the pattern of development of culture. Cultural differences exist according to race and ethnicity, such as those of Javanese, Minang, Bugis, and local. These differences also exist between regions, such as between East Coast Malay community when compared to community Malay West Coast of Peninsular Malaysia or the community Malays in Sarawak. In general, Malaysians still adhere to customs and the traditions of his people, especially the things concerned with community life. From time to time, customs that are not clearly the purpose and intent will be abandoned by a society that concern. The third one is multiracial. Malaysia is a special country in terms of its people and population. Malaysians are of various races and ethnicities. On basically, it is divided into two basic groups, namely the Bumiputra group and non-Bumiputra. The Malaysian Bumiputras are composed of the Malays and native of Sabah and Sarawak. People of non-Bumiputra consist of two main groups, namely Chinese and India, in addition to several other ethnic groups such as Portuguese, Serani, and so on. The last one is climate. Climate is also a factor that needs to be considered in determining existing law in Islamic law. Malaysia, as a country that tropical rain climate located at the equator, necessarily has different characteristics to Middle Eastern countries. Malaysia has temperature, rainfall, distribution, types of tree and plants, yield, eating habits and clothing, and so on are far different with what it's in the place where construction and construction fix begins. It is these differences that cause normal compatibility and the suitability of the interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah based on this matter. This is because geographical climate and the environment have a role to play great on the character and habits of a nation and group of people. Now we proceed to challenges and obstacles. The first one, community attitude. The general public is accustomed to a single view inherited from long ago. Look down upon these who try to introduce tajdid in this field of law. They see their differences with conservative scholars with the views of scholars contemporary in the legal issues they have held over the years. Based on this negative tendency, many people find it difficult to accept the view of the idea of extraordinary ideas, even many who have not been able to accept the idea of tajdid in producing law based on reality and the mentality of the society. The second one is weak mechanism. Also exacerbating the situation is the lack of methods and mechanism effective in channeling opinions and law to the public. In today's Malaysia society, legal institutions are appropriate play a role towards this unsatisfactory change. Such a body has an important position in ensuring something the law can be enforced or otherwise in society and country. The same goes for weak mechanism in conveying ideas Fiqh Malaysia. This may be due to the idea of Malaysian fiqh still at the framework level and the discussion only revolve around intellectuals have not yet been thrown into the public. It is feared that the mechanism used is less efficient and fails to generate any change in Islamic fiqh, and even worse, it is said to be the idea of shock itself only. The same goes for motion phase work. This phase or gradual system of work needs to be done to ensure the success of the idea of Malaysian fiqh. Careful planning and depth in essential so that the struggle does not die in the middle of the road. Okay, the third one is low quality intellectual values. The intellectual values of Malaysian jurists too is still mostly doubtful and unreliable because they are still too dependent to intellectual figures of different backgrounds as well as realities different communities. This is because local scholars have to refer to their fiqh books due to lack of reference from scholars locals who study and write about current Islamic law. In fact, the book of outside scholars should only be used as a platform for produce local fiqh instead of scooping 100% of those books. So, is the ability of law scholars in Malaysia lagging behind in terms of the use of science and technology approach in addition to suffering from phobia of everything related to development that occur. In this era of modern technological growth, various new issues and things related to human life will occur. In this regard, the problem arises increasingly complex and challenging the authority of Muslim intellectual, in particular in the field of fiqh, to face it. And the last one, number 4, is conservative attitude. Other than that, the conservative attitude of law scholars by simply in accordance with the legacy of the fiqh treasury alone without need to ijtihad insya'i or creative ijtihad. Dr. Yusuf Al-Qadrawi slim this group. It is not Dr. Al-Qadrawi to belittle the legacy fiqh, the old legacy fiqh, which he is emphasizing is the awareness of thinking that all the current problems are already the answer in the old book. Hence, every age and place has its own problem and solution. Therefore, the need of ijtihad remains. At the moment, the changes are taking place quite incredibly deep. The political, social, economic and cultural life of society, let alone after the occurrence of the Industrial Revolution. Excessive respect for the result of past scholars as well is a disease that plagues the scholars of law. Feelings of inferiority, soul-holding complex. Keep in mind, one important value in building a culture of knowledge is to seek the truth by gaining and improving the result of past and present human truth. Respect to renowned scholars and teachers should not restrict someone to continually improve the result of their thinking.
Alright, so one of the issue of contemporary ijtihad is about alcohol levels in food and beverages. The assumption that everything which contains alcohol is haram in Islam has made the presence of the alcohol in foods being one of the most controversial issues for Muslims. This is probably due to the use of the word alcohol, which has been synonymized into alcoholic drinks, which are prohibited in Islam. But actually, there is a difference between the term liquor, or we known as arak, alcohol and ethanol. According to Zulkifli, head of the Halal Analysis Laboratory at the Halal Product Research Institute UPM, the mistake in translating the word khamru into alcohol in English actually causes Muslims to tend to see everything that contains alcohol as something illegal or haram. There are various other types of alcohol used as additives in food or during the food preparation process, such as alcohol fat and alcohol sugar. An example of this alcohol is glycerol, a simple polyol compound that serves as a sweetener and preservative. So although these chemicals are called alcohols, they do not belong to khamru or liquor. In other words, they are not prohibited. Ethanol, the main psychoactive component in alcohol that causes intoxication, is the type of alcohol that is actually an issue in the Muslim community. According to the National Fatwa Council of Malaysia, every alcoholic beverage contains alcohol, but not all alcohol is liquor or arak. Therefore, the Muzakarah of the Fatwa Committee of the National Council for Islamic Religious Affairs Malaysia has decided soft drinks that is processed or made not for the purpose of producing alcohol and having alcohol below the 1% V per V level is harus or can be drunk. Foods or beverages containing flavors or dyes containing alcohol for stabilization purpose can be used if the alcohol is not produced from the process of making alcohol and the quantity of alcohol in the final product is not intoxicating and the alcohol content does not exceed 0.5%.
Next, we will go to the issue of breastfeeding ban in Malaysia. Ijtihad also need to be done in the issue of the establishment of breastfeeding bank. Breastfeeding bank is a place to store breast milk from donation from mothers of various religions and races. This milk is scientifically stored in a place that ensures its safety and it will be released based off the urgent or request and need of the baby. The history of breastfeeding bank began in 1910 in Washington, USA, as a result of Professor Talbot's idea. The method is to take milk from the mother and place it somewhere which is then given to the baby in need, especially the birth of a premature baby. The 1997 Muzakarah of Fatwa Committee of the National Council for Islamic Religious Affairs Malaysia, which convened on 15 to 17 December 2011, discussed the law on the establishment of the breast milk bank. The Muzakarah finally agreed to ban the use of milk bank. It is illegal or haram because babies drink the milk of unknown women. In Islam, breastfeeding through one woman or more than one woman will produce breastfeeding children, as well as breastfeeding siblings, and marriage between them is illegal or haram when it meets the prescribed condition. Thus, identifying the owner of breastfeeding is important in religion. This view is in line with the view of the majority of scholars regardless of whether breastfeeding occurs directly from the breast or through indirect breastfeeding is still forbidden or haram.
Okay guys, for the next issue is celebrating Valentine's Day. Fatwa law of Muslims celebrating Valentine's Day on February 14 every year, especially in America and Europe. We celebrate Valentine's Day, which is an official day to express their love for each other. Valentine's Day brought by Westerners without realizing it aims to hurt and damage the faith and morals of the Muslim community. This is because usually the scenario of celebrating Valentine's Day occurs among Muslim teenagers. Although this problem has not reached a chronic level, but it can contribute to the damage of the faith. moral, and culture of Muslims if no action is taken to awaken and convince them. According to foreign culture, especially in celebrating a certain day without knowing the background of the festival, will actually plunge Muslims into ruin. This is because such behavior can affect their faith and akidah. Fatwa decision in this regard, a paper related to the law of Muslims celebrating Valentine's Day, was presented and debated carefully by members of the Johor State Fatwa Committee on 21st Zulkaidah 1429 Hijriah, equivalent to 27th December 2005 Miladiah. After looking closely, the Fatwa Committee decided that the practice of celebrating Valentine's Day was never organized by Islam. The festival has elements of Christian teaching and practice mixed with act of immorality. This is forbidden by Islam because it clearly contradicts Islamic belief, Sharia and moral. Therefore, Muslims are prohibited from getting involved in celebrating the day. Members of the Johor State Fatwa Committee argue that the history of Valentine's Day does not exist in Islam. The cultural practices and desires of this festival have Christian elements that are in conflict with Islam. Valentine's origin is the real name of Saint Valentino, was one of the most influential priests during the reign of Queen Isabella in Spain, and was also one of the most important people to destroy Islamic civilization in Spain. Queen Isabella therefore set February 14 as the day to commemorate the Christian victory over Islam.
Okay, this is the issue about use of stem cells in therapeutic treatment and research. The laws and problems of stem cell use are not explicitly mentioned in past fiqh books. This is probably because it is a new thing that has not been discovered based on technology at that time. Thus, there is a change in the law in line with the development of technology. As the words of Ibn al-Qayyim, there is no denying the change in law due to the change of time, place and circumstances. Therefore, if there is a treatment that is able to treat a related disease, then we can get the treatment in line with the Maqasid al-Shari'ah, which take care of human life. Therefore, the scholars Mu'asarah say that the law of using stem cells in therapeutic treatment and research is a must based on the verse of the Quran and Hadith that encourage people to treat and provide quality medicine for the maslahah of society.